But we're live. Welcome everybody to this session on NetSuite and Dynamics. Super excited to have this deep dive into another couple strategic integrations. Frans, Winnie, who's talking first? I'll just hand it over to you, Winnie, and let you introduce yourself and take us away.
Sounds great. Thanks, Kyle. Hi, everyone. I'm Winnie Hien. I'm the product manager for the NetSuite and Dynamics integration. And today I'm joined by Frans Leys. Frans, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I am Frans Leys, speaking to you today out of Belgium, Ghent, where there is also a HubSpot office. And I'm the product manager for the data sync framework. And how the data sync framework relates to NetSuite and Dynamics is something Winnie will kick us off with.
Yeah, thanks for that, Frans. So I'm sure the reason why you're all here today is because you either have NetSuite and Dynamics or NetSuite or Dynamics, and you needed to integrate with HubSpot because it's never any good when your data is sitting siloed in its own systems. You want them to communicate with each other so you get the full power and value out of HubSpot and Dynamics or NetSuite. And so what we're hopefully going to cover today is how HubSpot has built our integration, where we're kind of going with our future of it, and then helping you to understand which teams in HubSpot build for it so you know what to look out for when features get released. So digging into that's going to be both me, myself, and Frans. And I guess just high level to get started, the way you can think about NetSuite and Dynamics is that they are data sync integrations. So if you've ever been in our marketplace and you've seen one of the 100+ integrations that are built by HubSpot, they are usually data sync integrations, and that's exactly what Frans's team manages. NetSuite and Dynamics actually has an additional team that builds on top of it, and that's the team that I run because they are deemed strategic integrations. So what that means is that HubSpot is doubly invested in these integrations. We want them to be natively built, natively supported by HubSpot support team as well, and so they have extra resources that are dedicated to them. So the beauty of that is that when Frans's team releases stuff for data sync, NetSuite and Dynamics gets it soon after because we are a strategic integration. And we're able to go a little bit deeper into the platform, more so than data sync, which is our generic sync framework. Super powerful, super scalable, but sometimes you need a little bit of extra power to jump into the nuances of NetSuite, which is pretty special, and then jump into the nuances of Dynamics as well. And so that's where my team comes in. But right now, I think it'd be really helpful for us to just head over to Frans so he can talk about the core data sync engine, because that's really the foundation of how our integrations work. Then I'll jump into some of the specifics of the features that my team develops for NetSuite and Dynamics. And then if we have time, we'll go over the future roadmap and then any questions that you all have. So Frans, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Awesome. All right. Am I sharing screen now?
No. Yes.
Oh, there's it. Okay, so I'll keep in mind that there's an awkward 4-second delay. We'll do it. So yeah, we're set out to cover both NetSuite and Dynamics, which is weird, right? Because those two platforms couldn't be more different from one another. Also, one customer using NetSuite will be using it differently from the next customer using NetSuite, and one customer using HubSpot will be using HubSpot differently from the other. So how the heck do you cover integrations with those platforms in one single session? Well, we can, thanks to the data sync framework, because the data sync framework, which was launched 2 years ago, powers over 112 apps, lost count. And here's what the Dynamics sync looks like. Here's what the NetSuite sync looks like. It's the exact same framework. So it comes with the exact same logic, the exact same setup screens, the exact same sync dynamics, pardon the pun. Also, it comes with the same limitations. I'll be open in addressing some of the limitations of our data sync in this session. So what's important to know, though, is that I'll be demoing mostly like with these things that I've got turned on. Microsoft Dynamics, I've got it turned on. Really, if you're more interested in NetSuite, just like replace Madlib Dynamics with NetSuite. It's the same demo. You can actually do the same demo for any of these 110 apps, 112 apps. It's literally the same sync framework. I think that makes it easier. We want to make it simple, that simple to just integrate external data into HubSpot with HubSpot, just to enable the front office. The USP of data sync is that we offer a two-way sync. I'll be sharing like a demo, and so if you've never seen it, cool. If you have seen data sync, if you have tried setting up data sync in the past, I'm actually super stoked to be able to demo it again, because what's happened over the last 2 years is that we've evolved. We've like done away with a couple of limitations. Kyle sometimes like announced it, but I'm pretty sure that a lot of changes have been just happening under the hood, and you've likely been hit with some of these limitations. Maybe if you set up a sync, or you tried to set up a sync a year ago and you've realized, oh, this doesn't sync, or I can't filter on this, and then you probably abandoned setting up that sync. Well, that's why it's so helpful to be able to like demo it again. So I'll demo it, but I'll also pay particular attention to the stuff that we've improved on over the last 2 years, because they're like subtle, but I think they're important to know. So I'm here looking at the sync overview, which shows me the health of my syncs. You can see which account I've got connected. So we've already basically launched the ability to add multiple accounts. You could connect multiple accounts. If you want to connect like a sandbox to your HubSpot production account, you can actually run data sync in a sandbox account as well, and connect it to your sandbox Dynamics or sandbox NetSuite there as well. But if sometimes could be helpful to just connect to your sandbox, as I'm doing in my production account, if you want to see how that runs. This is actually different from some other integrations, right, where you're just limited by, you can only connect to one account. So if you want to connect like another account, you could just have another screen like this and run your syncs. Another thing that's been happening over the last 2 years, ever since we've launched data sync, is like we've launched lots more objects. We launched data sync with just contacts. That was crazy. We just had a contact sync. We did not even sync accounts or companies, as they're called in HubSpot. In the meantime, we have companies, deals, invoices, which is a one-way sync. Notes, yep, that's activity sync. Products, so we have a sync of the product library. I could quickly glance over to my NetSuite sync, where we see these same-ish objects come back. NetSuite has a bunch of different types of products. Activity sync for NetSuite is coming up relatively soon. We're hoping to get that out this quarter, or maybe beginning of the next, because stuff is happening in NetSuite as well on the timeline that you want to push into. So launched a bunch of new objects, and that's really what our focus is going to be like this year. A bunch of these connectors are already out there. We know they are popular. We want to continue deepening out these things, give them more objects, because like even an app like Pipedrive, I know this is about NetSuite and Dynamics, but even an app like Pipedrive, we've also equipped with a couple like extra objects. You can always check out the marketplaces listing, right, to figure out what we exactly do. So if you're in doubt, what does Dynamics, what do we support for Dynamics? Sure enough, you can see these exact objects listed on the marketplace here. But as you will look for these like sort of longer tail niche data sync apps, we don't always have all the necessary objects yet, right? So here's Freshdesk. We just have the contacts object. You can definitely rest assured that my mission is deepening out these syncs, bringing more objects into these syncs to make them more interesting. So that's really what's coming up. Getting back to these syncs here, what exactly is happening here? Listening for changes. What does that mean? Well, it's basically listening for changes on properties happening, property changes happening on either side. I can actually still finish setting up my company sync. This is what all syncs look like. Regardless of objects, they always follow these 4 steps. And I've basically set up very flexible, liberal settings here. I've asked for a two-way sync. So any Dynamics account can just go into HubSpot. Any HubSpot company can just go into Dynamics. Are there filters? Yep, we'll see those in the limits tab. Here you can see the properties as they will sync back and forth. You do require Operation Substarter if you want to change these field mappings. You can see the field mappings here. You can add new field mappings here. One very big thing that we launched last year, this was the most complex field mapping that we've ever had to handle. And it just looks like a very simple field mapping. It's the company owner. We launched that. It's actually a very tricky sync within a sync, because you actually have to know who's a user in HubSpot, who's a user in Dynamics, and actually sync those two databases at the same time of this sync running. So we match on the email address attached to those records. And owners are important. They're for account ownership, for contact ownership, for lead ownership, for deal ownership. We've actually learned that like invoices also have owners. Like owners come back on all these objects. So we're happy that we can finally also cover these. People like had set up the craziest workarounds to make these work. And if you don't like the fact that we really map the owner to the actual owner, you can just remap it. You can grab a HubSpot user field here, like maybe it's an SDR. You want to map those, you can just map those, and it will magically work. Owner is a very impressive field mapping. The field mapping that we don't yet have exactly, but we're so close. I've seen it. I've seen my engineer. I've just spoke to my engineer who's been like working on this for the past years. Drop down sync. It's so close. I can tell it's so close. So the ability to select a drop down here and a drop down on the other, and for it to just as long as the underlying values match, that it will sync. That is so close. It's coming up for NetSuite and Dynamics, I can assure you. So right now it will only sync from a drop down into a text field. So you can bring over the information. It's just that if you want the information to directly map with one another, you may have to set up a workaround where the text value kicks off a workflow to actually set the drop down. That is hopefully something of the past real soon. Limit. We've launched advanced filtering. So obviously this is not what a typical setup should look like. You don't want to like YOLO sync everything to all over the place. You want to apply some limits here. In fact, we launched advanced filtering. If you've seen data sync when we just launched it, I'm ashamed to say like we only offered you one filter. It was like it's almost ridiculous thinking back of it. Now we have the ability to construct an advanced filter, so you can basically grab properties from the account itself or the associations that we grab from those accounts and construct your own filter and sort of group those filters. It can go one level deep. I always suggest to never like overthink these filters. Like if there's literally a Boolean, like a checkbox, say sync with HubSpot that you have created in Dynamics, have the sync point to that by all means. It makes it much easier to control your sync. And yesterday, Kyle, you don't know this yet because the prod notification hasn't gone out yet because I screwed up, but you'll know about this tomorrow, is we are now advanced filtering also on the outbound side. I call this outbound. It's like whatever you have in HubSpot, you want to sync it out to your other app. This used to be like only filtering on lists. So and you know this, Kyle, we only have lists for accounts and contacts, right? So that's why we were pointing towards lists. But we've done away with that limitation. So you can literally basically construct your sync filter criteria on the sync setup itself. And what does that unlock? It unlocks not just the ability to limit contacts and company syncs in a more easier way without you having to actually set up a list separately. We also have now unlocked the ability to basically set up limits for any of these objects. Like we didn't have filters for a deal sync. So in a deal sync, this used to be grayed out. Nope, out of luck. You can't filter HubSpot. You can't filter HubSpot deals. You're just going to get all the deals synced into Dynamics in case you wanted that. So now you actually get that same filter sidebar for all of our syncs. So that launched yesterday. Actually, my company sync hasn't been fired up yet. Let me just next. We'll associate these records. I'll the review pane, really important to read everything very carefully. I read it. What happens when you save and sync? Well, we do two things: an initial sync, and that could take a while. Initials, in my case, it doesn't because my sandbox is super small. But the initial sync can take a while because it does a historical sync, right? It's not going to just like sync from this point onwards in time. No, it will look at what do we have in HubSpot, what do we have in Dynamics, what are the sync rules that I need to execute on. So it's going to first catch up with that, and then it's going to pass into the continual sync. we've just launched, well, like a month ago, we also started sending out notifications because in my case, I mean, I immediately got the notification, but in other cases, it may take like up to a few hours. So if this is taking a while, you'll just get notified through the HubSpot notification network as soon as you make these changes. And sync health, yeah. So you can basically get like a good detailed report on what's happening. We're about to include like the record IDs because we were not showing these, although we know what the record IDs are. We're going to include these, both HubSpots as well as Dynamics in this case. We have some room to include some more data here. Give you the ability to also export these. You've got the record IDs in that export there in case you want to do some, like, you probably don't want to like export this list, but the list of like failing records. If you got like a bunch of records that are failing to sync and you don't really know why, you probably want to do some like maybe offline massaging in a spreadsheet to fix that data. And then you can like re-import it using our pretty awesome import wizard. So yeah, that's data sync in a nutshell. We've done a lot of work also under the hood to make sure that data sync really plays nicely with the HubSpot framework. And it's in the details, right? When you think like, if you check out the property histories, we will make sure that these things come through, that you know that which app it was that sort of modified it. We have this data quality dashboard in which I'm not sure if you've ever covered this in a HUG event, but where you can see like the health of your properties, your records. You can also like monitor the overall health of your data sync apps. So I have a ridiculous amount of data sync apps connected to my account, but if you have these different connections to sort of monitor, there is this one dashboard that you can keep close eye on to see what records are failing, what things do I have to sort of keep a look on. So that's now also been integrated in the data quality dashboard. So that's a very accelerated demo of the data sync part of the NetSuite and the Dynamics integration. Again, I really just show you Dynamics, but the NetSuite integration is pretty identical. Like it's the same filters, sort of different field mappings, and we can cover during questions probably some details on NetSuite. But that's not all that NetSuite and Dynamics have in offer. So I just showed you the data sync portion of it, but Winnie's team built awesome functionality on top of it. And it sort of sits here under feature discovery, but I'm not gonna steal Winnie's thunder. That's up for Winnie to tell. Are you ready to take the stage, Winnie?
I am indeed. I think I don't see the, oh, here we go, share screen option.
Yeah, it's a little tricky. While you're managing that, Frans, let me just ask you some of the questions that have come in while you were talking, so we don't have to loop back to them later.
There's a Q&A tab.
There is. Yeah. You want to just look through these and answer them?
Oh, yeah. I can do it. I just started off. Should there be an order to the synchronization? That's a super cool question, and the short answer is no. But you are right. Like, for example, the notes need contacts. Yes, they do. So what happens is if you set up a sync just to notes, if the contacts happen to already exist without you even setting up that contact sync, here's a magical thing that will happen. We will sort of infer, and we will actually run a contact sync in the background. So we will actually be able to associate those records, even though you haven't explicitly set up a contact sync. If the contact doesn't exist, which is possible, because basically your notes live in Dynamics and the contacts live in Dynamics, and you haven't moved those contacts into Dynamics yet, and you just turn on your note sync, well, that's where the failing to sync category will just like, it will populate and it will list a bunch of errors. And then you're like, what do I need to do? Well, the simple solution is if then you turn on your contact sync, all those failing to sync errors will just magically resolve as it sort of like repairs, like it finds its associations. So there is no strict order, but if you don't want to see that failing to sync error list build up, you can always start off with, I think it's best to often start off with companies, contacts, deals, to sort of like follow that hierarchy. But the sync is super forgiving in which order you choose. So long-winded answer. How to set up the deal stage property? Well, actually, deal stages, we've given it its dedicated section inside of a deal sync. I can quickly show. It's actually no biggie. Let me just actually show it in the NetSuite sync. So in a deal sync, under the limit tab, as you can see, I've not looked at my. I've been making some changes in my deal steps. So basically, it's going to read out which pipelines you have, and then it forces you to really map those deal stages into the NetSuite statuses. So if you have multiple pipelines, because I think Dynamics, you can set up multiple pipelines. NetSuite just has the one single pipeline. You literally map those up. We have this auto map, which is going to like read some of the words, try to figure out what sort of is equal. But you have to indeed map these as on top of field mapping. So that's how deal stages map. How far back is historical sync? There is no limit in time. So that's like it's a good question, but it's actually very it's also very abstract to think about this when we do two-way sync. Like, how back should we go? We can't like arbitrarily go back 90 days. It's when we think about, I know where this is coming from, like the MailChimp sync, it's only syncs back activity for like 90 days, but that's not how we sort of approach sync. We just fetch what is available. And typically APIs don't really limit the availability of the objects that we fetch in time. They're just there. If you don't want all of it, you can limit it. How do you sync limits leads and contacts from Dynamics to contacts in HubSpot? That is the. I'll just obviously show my Dynamics sync. So HubSpot only has the one object, contact object, which is sort of like broken up within its lifecycle stage property. Because within the lifecycle stage property, we separate the leads from the paying customers and the evangelists and the custom life cycles and whatchamacallits. Dynamics makes a very clear separation of, you've got a leads bucket and you've got a contact bucket. Typically, contacts are the people that you've actually engaged with, that you have some sort of contact with, whereas leads, they could often be anything. It's often like a very sort of like unstable database in Dynamics. So when you set up a lead sync, we do ask that you specify, and this is depending on which direction you take. But let's imagine I am taking a two-way sync approach here. Within not within this tab, but within the limit tab. Now, all leads can sync into HubSpot, but as they sync into HubSpot, we do ask that you appoint a specific lifecycle stage in case they didn't exist yet. We do want to make sure that we know that, okay, this is an actual Dynamics lead, is it? The reason why we ask that question is, in a two-way sync, we're also going to sync contacts back into Dynamics. And as we sync them back into Dynamics, well, surely we can't sync all HubSpot contacts back to the leads bucket, because we would also be syncing like paying customers back into Dynamics as leads, which they aren't. They should become contacts. So we ask that you basically create within these sync rules 2 different buckets of syncs. So this is actually a required filter. You should definitely add other filters on top, but this is a required filter. So in my case, I'm asking that subscribers and leads can sync over. Anything else, anything upwards from that, that's going to become part of my contact sync. So sure enough, if I exit out of this in my contact sync, you'll see that under the limit tab, it's pointing towards all of these other thingies here, and I literally cannot select these ones anymore because they've been flicked on in my other sync. Hopefully that explains that. You set a date from which you would like the sync to take place. Yep. So advanced filter on those properties, like a create date property. Is there a quote synchronization? There isn't, but I'm like Winnie will speak to like sales order sync, which is similar. So maybe we should park that question for now. How does a sync manage historical data in both systems where the customer name may differ slightly? So we have different matching sort of mechanisms. For contacts, we match on email. Like even if your name is spelled differently, the email is what we use to match. For companies, we match on the company name. Case insensitive, but we match on the company name. So if the company name is different, we do treat it as a different company, and so we will cause that company to be created. And Bill said it would be great for our Salesforce sync. I'm not sure what would be great for the Salesforce sync, but yeah. I went through the questions.
Frans, one more question that I
Please.
answered but did not answer, which was how does this affect API limits, the data sync? Does it eat towards HubSpot's API limits? Does it eat towards Dynamics API limits?
We're definitely hitting Dynamics' API as well as NetSuite's API. You are not hitting HubSpot's API, right? We are data sync, if you consider it like a separate architecture that does like data queries, whatever we do on the HubSpot side is for free. Like you're never going to run into limits on that front. But we are obviously this piece of software that's knocking on Dynamics' door and knocking on NetSuite's door. So if you're having those API limits there, it's pretty data intensive, especially the initial sync. Once the initial sync is over, the continual sync, that really only listen to deltas. So if your data is changing with like hundreds of thousands of records per day, then it's gonna continue to be very data intensive. But typically it isn't. Just the deltas, just the records that have changed, we can fetch those with like simple list calls, and then it's relatively lightweight. So when we do hit rate limits, which I haven't yet seen with Dynamics. Dynamics is pretty flexible. NetSuite could have some rate limits. We're informed of that, right? So there's a message that appears, and we will in a sane fashion try to repeat those calls and like retry as soon as we can.
All right. I think there was just two more questions, I think, on company domain and company names. So Frans, I'll let you tackle that one, and then I'll take over for additional features from Daryl.
So can company domain be used as a second? We actually, and I recorded this entire loom for you, Winnie, on this. But I'm forgetting what we actually match on, because this is where we have 110 apps and the matching systems are slightly different. I do believe both for NetSuite and Dynamics, we're not able to like match on domain, and the simple reason being that we cannot like in the default company schema, like property schema, there is no such thing as a domain. Hey, Frans, you're lying. There's a web address. Yes, but that's not a domain, right? Web address isn't the exact same as domain, or at least it's not the same way as how HubSpot would treat a domain. It's only a limited amount of apps that really do some like clear validation of a domain, like which ends at the .com or .co.uk or whatever. So we're not matching on those. We're only matching on name right now. We are toying with the idea of making that a little bit more flexible, because we've noticed that sometimes our matching could be a little bit too strict, and maybe you do want just like 2 records that actually have it in my sync here. So imagine you have 2 records, like you have a Disney, right? And you have 2 Disneys in your one app. And sure, if you actually dig down, maybe one is Disney North America, the other is Disney South America, or like West Coast, whatever. if they carry the same name, maybe you do want to bring them over. And we're trying it with the idea of like making that a little bit more flexible there. So it's this is work in progress, like to make sure. What we actually want to avoid is that if you have duplicates on the one hand, that we're going to create twice the mess in HubSpot, or vice versa. So these matching systems are there to mostly protect you until the moment that we've like realized, here actually we're like locking away information, and it's our matching mechanisms are actually preventing data to move over. So that's where we're trying to put some improvements out through in this year as well.
Yeah, I guess, Frans, for me, reading between the lines from Daryl and other customers I've talked to for Dynamics and NetSuite, it's kind of the idea of they might have a specific way that they deduplicate their contacts. And so the one size fits all maybe is not the right approach for them. So like opening that up would be great, but also maybe still being able to control how you filter that back down. So that's part of my role with Frans, is that I advocate for NetSuite and Dynamics customers, and I go, Frans, what do you think about this? Can we continue pushing maybe a little bit more upmarket and a little bit more enterprise with some of our features? So keep them coming and send them my way.
Like matching on domain definitely makes sense, and the thing that we currently just don't have is, and this is where me and Winnie will play some ping pong. We actually cannot safely assume that there is inside of NetSuite and Dynamics this field called domain that we can safely match on. But I'm sure that Winnie's team can actually like build stuff inside of Dynamics and NetSuite for our framework to actually safely hook into, to actually have another matching algorithm other than just name. So Winnie, we work well together. We can make these things even more perfect.
I took a note, Frans. You have mentioned that to me in the past, so yes. Cool. Well, I guess let me go into some of the specific features that we've built on top of this, because that's the other half of my role is like cool things that we do for NetSuite and Dynamics. Pestering Frans all the time with updates that we want for NetSuite and Dynamics in the data sync engine. So, and then I think we'll be able to answer some of the questions that we have remaining in the chat. Oh, okay. This is what it looks like when I'm sharing my screen, huh?
Yeah, you're still here. Don't worry.
Okay, thanks, Kyle. Thanks.
Because the webinar is in a browser, unless you have like 2 different monitors, we will all just be invisible and silently watching. I'll do my best to audibly tell you when something interesting happens in the chat.
Lovely. All right. Well, diving into the features that my team does as the strategic integrations team. So sync is what Frans's team covers. Mine is like everything else. If it's not something that syncs from one object to another object, that's me. So some interesting ones here. I'm going to just go quickly into an example is workflows, deal-based workflows to create orders or sales orders in Dynamics or NetSuite. That's not Frans's team because it's not taking deal to opportunity data and syncing it back and forth. It's taking deal data and then transforming it and sending it into, say, the orders object in Dynamics. So any data transformation, any features in lists, reporting, embeds into the other framework or into the other system, that's everything that my team does. And whenever we release new features, right now it comes out in the feature discovery, and in your integration, you'll see a little green tab that says new features. So that's how you would find that. So kind of going into here for feature discovery, the first one that I'd like to go into is the HubSpot embed. If you've ever been a part of our Salesforce integration, you'll know that we have something called the Visual Force window, which is embedding HubSpot insights from, say, like marketing, your BDR teams, directly into Salesforce. Well, we have the same exact thing for Dynamics and NetSuite. So I'm going to go ahead and demo that for Dynamics. So right now we're inside of Dynamics, we're on a contact record, and this contact is syncing through data sync back into HubSpot. And so you'll see that, this is probably what Dynamics looks like on the regular, but you have an extra tab here that lets you look at all of the insights from HubSpot directly from within Dynamics. So you can filter the timeline for all of this stuff, same as if you were inside of HubSpot. So we could limit that a little bit more. My record doesn't have a lot of data, but the things that you'd be able to see here that are interesting are like marketing email sent, emails like sales emails opened, like sales emails sent, meetings booked, calls logged, all of that stuff that could be really interesting here. You also have, and this is different from Salesforce in the sense that when there's more than 5 records, you can keep scrolling forever and see the whole timeline. So all of the historical data for that contact. But at a quick glance, you see all the high level stuff here. Other really cool things that are added is you can see all of the associated company records and links out to HubSpot, all the associated deals, so you know what's been happening with the contact, as well as tickets on the Dynamics view. If you go into HubSpot properties, you actually now get to see all of the properties that you would within HubSpot. So a fun one might be like marketing. Let's see. We have this not here, but under perhaps contact info, web analytics, somewhere here. Let's say over here, if you want to see like all the marketing emails that this person has ever clicked or been delivered, how engaged they are, all of that data pulls into your embed as well. And then if you just hover over any of these, you'll see the property history. There's nothing on this one, but you see all of the different changes. So being able to see how this contact has changed over time within HubSpot. All of that is available within the embed. And then for workflows, you also have the ability to look for workflows and then enroll that contact directly into the workflow from your embed. So really, really cool stuff. This is available in Dynamics on the contact record. It's also available in Dynamics on the account record and also available in Dynamics on the opportunity record. So you get HubSpot everywhere over in Dynamics. So this is what's already live and has been out since the end of last year. What's coming soon for this integration is we're going into discovery and exploration around bringing additional Sales Hub tools from HubSpot into the embed. So that's things like sequences, templates, meetings. We're like looking into all of it, nothing definite just yet, but looking into bringing more HubSpot power into Dynamics and NetSuite. And I don't have an example of this right now for NetSuite, but it basically looks exactly the same. Another tab that you can click inside of NetSuite to see this. Cool. One thing I do want to cover, because that comes up a lot with Dynamics and HubSpot use cases in particular, is you use HubSpot for marketing, you use Dynamics for HubSpot for marketing and lead generation, Dynamics for working your deals as your CRM. And so something that comes up quite a bit is the ability to maybe create more leads inside of Dynamics because it's a different data model. And so what Frans covered with the core data sync is syncing a HubSpot contact to a Dynamics lead or a HubSpot contact to a Dynamics contact, something we're exploring. And if you're interested, let me know, because we're going to probably enter a private beta on this soon, is the ability to take a HubSpot workflow and then create a lead inside of Dynamics, because then you can run your business process off of that, merge it into the contact that you want eventually when you're ready. But creating a lead inside of Dynamics and then getting this view with this HubSpot embed on that lead so you can get all of the lead intelligence for qualifying further. So that is kind of in development now, but we're looking for more feedback to see how it works with the data sync engine. So if anyone's interested in that, do let me know, because I would love to chat. Okay, so that's kind of Dynamics and the embed. Any questions here, Kyle? Because if not, I'm going to move to orders, sales order creation, and talking about like quoting and invoicing.
I think go ahead and keep going. We'll circle back to the questions at the end, because I suspect some of these you might get to.
Okay. All right, sounds good. So the other thing I wanted to show is the other feature that we have is automating your sales process in terms of handing off to accounting and finance teams. My team is the ERP team, so Enterprise Resource Planning team. That's exactly what NetSuite is. Dynamics has that as well, probably through Business Central and FN Finance and Operations. But the ability to create sales orders in your feature that we have inside of HubSpot. So how does that work? Well, inside of HubSpot, we have 2 ways of doing it. Say you have a, let's say you have a deal So let's kind of go through what this would look like in HubSpot. You have your sales reps working deals in your pipelines. Things are doing great. They're moving along. And then maybe when your deal makes it to a contract sent stage or closed won stage, you're like, great, we're done with the sales work inside of HubSpot. Now we want that to connect over into NetSuite so we can kick off the warehouse processes, fulfillment, payment, all of that. Well, you can do that in two ways inside of HubSpot now. You can automate it, which is through workflows. We should all probably be super familiar with that one. You can create a deal-based workflow. And when the deal hits whatever stage, whatever filter criteria that works for you, it will allow you to unlock this action called create a sales order. So we have it for NetSuite. We have this for Dynamics. If you click into it, it gives you the option of setting up how you want your sales order to be created in the other system. That's already set up over here. So if we go down, you'll see that you can pick the account in NetSuite. You can pick the subsidiary if there is one, and then you can tell them who you want to be associated to the sales order. We have the option of contacts or companies. And then it will actually pull in the line items from the deal in HubSpot and send them over to the sales order in NetSuite or Dynamics. And then if you have any extra fields that you want to bring over as well, you have the ability to add fields. So this will search NetSuite and pull in all of the fields that they have. Once you've picked one, you can go ahead and pick which property from the deal you want to automatically map and put into here as well. And then you can go ahead and save and then turn on the workflow. And so I can, for example, manually enroll a workflow, a deal into the workflow, and then it'll run through. And what will happen next is that it will create the sales order over in NetSuite. It'll say pending approval. And so your finance team can go in, take a look at that, and then approve or reject the sales order. And then that will show up again on the HubSpot side. Let's see if we have an example of that. I have, I guess not yet. Let me find one of my deals that have enrolled. Deals. So let's go over here. What will happen is once it's been sent over, this one errored out. So sorry that I can't show it to you live. But when it does send over, you'll see a little CRM card over here that says the name of it, I think the ID, and it even gives you a link to view the sales order over in NetSuite. And that would probably appear over here under the approved sales orders list. You'll see something new that got created from HubSpot. All right, so that's the automatic flow. The other option is you also have the manual flow if you don't want to automate everything because there's a lot of maybe editing and changes that people do on the fly. You also have the option to pull over the sales orders directly here, move along, and it will give you all the fields that you want to add, and then it will pull in the line items from the deal into here for the sales order as well. And then it will create, and then you'll see it again in that CRM card. Cancel creation. Okay, cool. Quick things to recap for the sales order flow are one limitation right now that we're hearing for customers is that they want pricing from HubSpot to pass over into NetSuite or Dynamics. Right now, we don't pass over pricing. We take the quantity, we take the line item, we send it to NetSuite, and we create the sales order. But then we let NetSuite do the pricing. This is because from the research that we had done, we know that ERP is a little bit more complex, more complicated for pricing. And so HubSpot couldn't quite match that functionality. So we were letting ERPs take over for the pricing. But in kind of research, we've learned that some customers don't do pricing in NetSuite and they don't do pricing in HubSpot. They actually have their own separate system or an Excel doc or something where they figure out the pricing. And so when they put it into HubSpot, that's actually the correct pricing. And they want to just kind of send the carbon copy of that over into NetSuite. So that's an update that we're looking at doing now for sales orders. Other ones that have come up is maybe needing to automate other parts of the process, maybe from the invoice level, from the quote level. And so that's something we're exploring. So if sales orders isn't the right fit for you in terms of ERP automation, I would also love to chat, because we're looking at what are the other ways people need to customize this flow, since every ERP setup is a little bit different. Cool. I think that's it for current features from NetSuite and Dynamics.
Great, thank you so much. If you want to maybe stop sharing so you can see the questions yourself, there are quite a number of questions. And we do have a survey. I haven't grabbed it. Deanna, do you have the survey link? She'll drop that in the chat. If you all want to give feedback on this session, we'd really appreciate it. Also, if you are interested in the alpha feature Winnie teased, mention that in that survey, and I'll do my best to connect you to her. So Winnie, we have one question here just in the general chat, and then in the Q&A we've got a lot, but I want to make sure this one doesn't get lost. What happens if an organization has different business units? Can these also be mapped to NetSuite? Anything involving business units is way over my head.
Oh, I kind of thought that subsidiaries were NetSuite's version of business units. If that is not the case, please drop a message in that survey that Kyle's talking about, and we will chat further. Because right now, Frans and I have talked about business units. That's a drop-down select, and so we don't map it yet, but it's something we're looking into. So yeah, we'd love to chat.
Awesome. And then if you want to click on that Q&A tab, there's a lot of questions in here. Some of these I think Frans answered earlier.
Can you set a date from which you'd like the sync to take place? I think any of the date fields, if you use that, would work, or set your own custom one. And then bill, leads, and contact sync separately. That's for Salesforce. I know, wouldn't it be lovely? That is a completely different integration, 10 years old, custom, bespoke, and it has a different product manager for now. So we can pass the feedback on to that PM.
That's a brandy question.
Question. So I'm going to say those are all set. How about reporting? Can we create reports based off of ERP activity? If you can bring the data into HubSpot through the core sync engine, then the answer is yes, because then I think, Frans, it becomes available in the custom report builder, and then you can pull that data in for reporting.
Yeah, like I want to be mindful to not disclose too much of like future roadmap, but Winnie's demoed pushing sales orders out of HubSpot. Like we are also thinking about how do we get data that sits in these ERP systems like sales orders into HubSpot, right? So it's new object that we're starting to think of. We're already doing it with invoices. So if these orders are leading to invoices and you want to just actually report on the actual money that was billed towards your customers, people have been setting up syncs of invoices which associate to contact companies. And if you have these invoices associated to deals, you'll also see them in your associated to your deals, and they'll show up in the custom report builder in HubSpot. So yeah, there's already ways to bring it in, and our mission of this year is to bring even more data in to get the purchase history and all that in.
So in other words, more to come. That's definitely a use case we want to support. Is if you're connecting your ERP to HubSpot, we assume part of the reason is because you want to pull in that data for segmentation, for reporting. And so that is the goal of our long-term roadmap for these integrations. All right, Samantha, verifying activity sync is available in Dynamics today, but NetSuite is coming, Frans, as a data sync question.
To specify for Dynamics, we have the notes already out there, because notes are just a ridiculously simple object. Activities, kind of like a wonky little thing in Dynamics where it sort of acts like a task, but it's at the same time like a call that you log. We've sort of nailed down the functional specifics on that one. It's being built as we speak. It's a matter of weeks to see the rest of the activity that happens in Dynamics: calls, emails, tasks. Get those logged into HubSpot, and right after we release that, or even simultaneously, we're actually working on the NetSuite, which I think is a little bit more straightforward in terms of activities.
Okay. And then Daryl volunteered to chat, so very, very happy for that. and anyone else as well. Another one that we're doing is doing more research into the embeds, that iframe, looking at what else we want to bring in. So my designer and I would love to chat to like 5 or 10 HubSpot customers in the coming weeks. So if you're open to chatting and would like to see some features come out of your suggestions, let us know.
Awesome. Yeah, so heading back over to just the general chat pane, Frans, Winnie, if people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to do that? Do you have a preference?
I'm actually sometimes active on the community forum as well. So sometimes if you send me a message on the community forum, I'm actually pretty responsive there. Or email. I mean, you can sort of induce my email address. If you know anybody's email address at HubSpot, you also know that mine is fleys@hubspot.com.
Oh no, he's let the secret out.
Oh no.
I was going to say, reach out to me through your customer success manager or your channel consultant. I think it's helpful to just have them in the loop if we're going to be chatting, because then I know who to follow up with as well, and they know how to reach me. So you could just say like, hey, I was on the Admin HUG event with Winnie and Frans. They said I can reach out through my CSM, which is what I am doing now. And then if you give a little summary of like what it is you're interested in learning more about or chatting about, then we can kind of take it from there.
Yeah, I'll actually caveat that if you send me an email and it's about, hey, Frans, I've got this sync running and it's showing these errors, you should know that I do not have the ability to actually open up your account and figure out those sync errors. I do not have the ability. So you will have to raise like a normal support ticket to get that stuff investigated, because I do not have that authority. So for like issues, you'll have to raise a support ticket. For questions and feedback, definitely I'm all ears.
Great. Well, thank you both. We are just about at time here. If everyone could please fill out that survey, we'd love your feedback on this session. Any requests you have for future sessions, let us know. Again, if you are interested in some of these alphas and things, you can tell us there too, and I can pull those all together and send them over to Winnie. As people are out the door, Daryl's dropping in one last minute question here. Do you see clients using HubSpot for sales enablement, business development sequences, and dynamics for SQLs and forward to deals?
The short answer is yes, which is why we're looking at bringing more of those tools into the embed.
Perfect. Great. Thanks everyone for coming. It's been great. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and shut it down. Frans, Winnie, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks all.
Thanks all.
Bye.